edge!
What if a royal princess became the deadliest gladiator in Rome? This is the story of Ariana, daughter of King Theodric, princess of the small but proud kingdom of Illeria, a land hidden in the forests of Western Europe, near the river Moselle. Illeria was not the biggest kingdom, nor the richest, but its people loved Ariana like no other. She was known for her kindness, her courage, and the way she would ride through the villages, speaking with farmers and soldiers alike. To her people, she was not just a princess, she was their hope. But one fateful day, everything changed. The Roman legions came. Iron and fire swept through Illeria's walls. The men fought bravely, but Rome's war machine was unstoppable. The city was burned, its defenders cut down, and its survivors chained. Ariana, the jewel of her people, was dragged from her father's palace as her kingdom fell in smoke and ash. She was not treated as a royal. To the Romans, she was nothing more than a slave. The mighty princess of Illeria was thrown in chains, mocked, and paraded before crowds who cheered her humiliation. Rome believed her spirit would break. But Ariana was not like other captives. Inside her burned a fire greater than Rome's torches. She swore that if the gods granted her breath, she would rise again, not just to survive, but to fight back. And her stage would not be the throne of Illeria anymore. It would be the blood-soaked sand of the Colosseum. This is the tale of how a princess became Rome's most feared gladiator. The flames of Illeria burned bright against the night sky. The smell of smoke and blood carried through the air, heavy and cruel, as Roman horns echoed across the hills. Ariana had never heard such a sound before. It was the sound of conquest, the sound of her kingdom's death. Her father, King Theodric, had fought bravely. The warriors of Illeria held their spears high, shouting their battle cries. But Rome's war machine was unstoppable. The walls crumbled, the gates shattered, and before long, Ariana found herself dragged from her home by soldiers who looked at her not as a princess, but as a prize. The people who once cheered her name now screamed in terror as they were cut down or shackled in chains. Ariana cried out for her father, but she never saw him again. Some said he died in battle. Others whispered he was taken too. But Ariana knew the truth in her heart. Rome wanted her, not him. Chained and bound, Ariana was forced to march with the other captives across miles of stone roads. She no longer rode her white horse. She no longer wore silk gowns. The Romans stripped her of her crown, her jewels, and her pride. To them, she was no longer Ariana, princess of Illeria. She was property.
Days later, she stood in the heart of Rome. The Colosseum loomed over her like a monster carved from stone, its walls towering into the heavens. She had heard of it before, a place where men fought beasts, where slaves fought soldiers, and where blood was entertainment. But she had never imagined she would stand inside its gates, shackled like an animal. The Colosseum was no place for mercy. Every roar of the crowd was a demand for blood, and every fight was a gamble between life and death. For Ariana, the barbarian princess turned captive, this was no longer just a fight for survival. It was the forge of her destiny. On her very first day in the Gladiator pits, Ariana was mocked. Her golden hair, once braided like a royal crown, was cut short by her captors to humiliate her. The other gladiators laughed at her soft skin, untouched by battle scars. "A princess cannot fight," they sneered. "She will die before the sun sets." But Ariana held a secret fire inside her. Her father, the king of Averloria, had trained her not only in courtly grace, but also in the ways of the sword. She knew how to fight, though never had she fought for her life in such an unforgiving arena. Her first match was against a veteran gladiator, Marcus, a brute who had killed 20 men. The crowd expected a quick slaughter. The gates opened, the sand was hot under her feet, and Marcus came charging like a bull. Ariana dodged, swift as the wind. She had no armor, only a small shield and a gladius. The fight lasted minutes, but those minutes felt like eternity. With one final strike, she buried the blade deep into Marcus's side. The crowd gasped, then erupted into thunderous cheers. The princess had drawn first blood. From that moment, Ariana's legend began to grow. Each battle was fiercer, each opponent stronger, yet she survived. Not because she was the strongest, but because she fought with something her rivals did not: purpose. Every swing of her sword was driven by vengeance for her people. Every victory was a step closer to the senator who had betrayed her kingdom. The trainers noticed her rise. They hardened her with cruel drills, testing her body to its breaking point. She was forced to carry heavy stones until her back bled, to spar against 2 men at once, to run while chained. Many times she thought she would collapse, but each time she remembered her father's last words before the Romans struck him down. "Never bow, Ariana, never." And so she did not bow. Weeks turned to months, and the barbarian princess transformed. She was no longer seen as weak or fragile. Instead, she became a spectacle. The Romans began to chant her name: Ariana, the Golden Fury, Ariana, the Lioness of the North. Her greatest test came when she was thrown into the arena with a beast, a lion from Africa, starving and enraged. The crowd screamed for blood. The gate opened, and the lion charged across the sand. Ariana stood her ground, her heart pounding. At the last moment, she sidestepped, plunging her spear into its side. The beast writhed, but Ariana showed no fear. She pressed the attack, striking again and again, until the lion collapsed. When she raised her weapon in victory, the Colosseum thundered so loudly it felt as though Rome itself shook. But Ariana did not smile. She knew her path was still long. Each fight gave her fame, yes, but fame was not her goal. Her eyes were set higher. She wanted freedom, she wanted justice, and most of all, she wanted revenge against Senator Cassian, the man whose lies had led Rome's legions to her homeland, whose greed had enslaved her people. The Colosseum had taken away her crown, her family, and her kingdom. But in its place, it gave her something new: power. And Ariana knew how to wield it. As the crowd cheered her name, Ariana whispered to herself, "This is not the end. This is the beginning." The princess was gone. In her place stood a gladiator, a warrior, and soon Rome would tremble because of her.